Ayan, hi and good evening everyone. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Hello Philippines and hello world. Ayan, we welcome you to the 19th episode and at the same time, first episode of ang show na walang title pero hashtag sa atin ang eleksyon. Hashtag sa atin dahil we want a safe, accountable, transparent, inclusive elections which inspire national public confidence. Magandang gabi po sa lahat. I am Haj Kabalu, your host for tonight, live here in the city of Cotabato in Mindanao, the Philippines. Ayan. As far as I know nga, no, made in Cotabato City din nga, itong ating title na ang show na walang title pero hashtag sa atin ang election. Bakit nga ba ang show na walang title, ang title ng show na ito? Medyo tongue twister yon. Kasi nga sabi nga ni Carlo Aquino, akala mo lang wala, pero meron! Ayan, ang assurance po natin para sa lahat ay meron kayong matututunan sa show na ito. Wala man siyang title, pero meron kayong matututunan. Together, we will be forming this necessary paradox. Pero simplihan na lang natin, opposite attracts. Ang show natin ay tatakbo hanggang May 2022, every first and third Friday ng buwan, 7 to 8 p.m. Kaya save those days. Ayan. For this episode of ang show na walang title, we will say hello to Facebook Ads Library. Nako, napaka-interesting ng ating episode tonight, no? Even I medyo unfamiliar with the Facebook Ads Library. Mamaya malalaman natin how does Facebook Ads Library work at ano ba ang relationship niya with the incoming 2022 national elections. You know? Just to give you a brief background kung ano bang objectives or aims natin for tonight, una sa lahat is we want to educate the public on what the Facebook Ads Library is. Second is to expound on the issues of the right to information, citizens' participation, and the political aspirants' transparency and accountability. And last but not the least is to educate the public on how to use the Facebook Ads Library. Ayan. So tonight we are very lucky to have with us three expert guests who will help us achieve these objectives and of course share their insights on the episode topic. Hindi na po natin pa tatagalin pa, wala na pa tumpik-tumpik ka, simulan na po natin ipakilala ang ating mga guests for tonight. Our first guest is the Executive Director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. She has been a journalist for 17 years and has co-written 4 books on Philippine elections and government contracting. She recently launched an award-winning book, definitely award-winning book na po ito, on the Marawi Siege on Mindanao Island, which she covered on the ground in 2017. Previously, she was a senior reporter for Rappler from 2011 to 2018 and was the head researcher of GMA's Bawal ng Pasaway Public Affairs Program. Prior, she worked as a researcher for the investigative news magazine Newsbreak. Ladies and gentlemen, our first guest, Carmela Fonbuena. Ayan.
Hi, Haj. Hello to
Yes.
Lenta. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Carmela. Ayan. Our next guest has been at Facebook for 9 years, where she has worked in sales, product marketing, and most recently as a partner manager in the government, politics, and nonprofits team. In her current role, she works with government, political parties, and nonprofits in Southeast Asia to educate them on advertising best practices across Facebook and Instagram. She has also been involved in election works across the region, and most recently, she has been focused on helping health authorities run public service announcement ads related to COVID-19, such as vaccine awareness campaign. Prior to Facebook, which is now Meta, she worked in digital marketing at both traditional publishers as well as in ad tech companies. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our representatives from Facebook, Kylie.
Hi, Haj. Happy to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. And our last but not the least na ating pong guest for tonight is the head of politics and government outreach for Asia Pacific, where he is responsible for working with governments and politicians on how best to use Facebook to connect with their citizens. As the APAC lead for the outreach team, He has worked with politicians, political campaigns, and government offices in Australia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, and Taiwan, among others. He has a background in marketing and branding, having worked in companies such as Saatchi & Saatchi, I hope I pronounced that right, and Intercontinental Hotels Group. He has also worked in the Singapore government leading marketing and social media strategy for his ministry and political office holders. Ladies and gentlemen, another representative from Facebook, Roy.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good to see you all.
Thank you so much. Bago natin kumustahin ang ating mga guests ngayong gabi, medyo na-pressure po ako sa bigatin po natin mga guests ngayong gabi, no? Ayan, bago po natin simulan ang ating show proper, ayan, we would just like to share that we are live on Lenta Philippines Facebook and YouTube accounts and to our different partner accounts or pages on Facebook. To all our listeners and viewers right now, please do not forget to like and share our episode tonight and use the hashtag Satin ang Eleksyon. And if you have any questions, clarifications, comments, or shout-outs to our special guests, to our episode topic, or sa akin, ayan, if you want to send some love, feel free lang po to leave in the comment section and we will get to them later. Ayan, hindi na po tayo magpapatumpik-tumpik pa. Let us all welcome again and proceed with our show proper. Our guests, Carmela, Kylie, and Roy. Before anything else, I would just like to give this opportunity for you to be able to greet our listeners and viewers right now. Let's start with Carmela.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from Manila. It will be a very exciting and important conversation tonight.
Definitely. Thank you, Carmela. Let's proceed with Kylie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I really look forward to the discussion about the Facebook ad library.
Thank you so much. Roy?
Hi, everyone. Good to be here and I hope you learn something about our tools today and how you can use it to your benefit. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carmela, Kylie, and Roy. We'll now proceed with the session proper. And I will just throw in the first question. And I think this is addressed to our representatives on Facebook. So just this, I believe this question is in the minds of every one of us. So how does the Facebook ads library work and what are its component or elements? I believe Miss Kylie has a presentation about this one. Miss Kylie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Haj. Just checking that you can see the presentation. Yes, can you see the presentation?
Yes, right now.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Great. Well, thanks again, Haj, for inviting us here tonight. And I'm going to talk to you about the Facebook ad library, which is our searchable database of electoral and political ads. So this is one of our advertising transparency tools that we introduced in 2020, so August last year in the Philippines. The ad library really helps to make political advertising more transparent by giving people information about the ads that they're seeing. The ad library is being used by a lot of different groups, one of which are election regulators as they try and understand, what ads are running, during elections and, who's responsible for them, how much political parties and candidates are spending to reach and influence voters, and also just to analyze additional insights so they can help hold accountable both Facebook and advertisers. So we've made really large and significant investments since 2016, both in terms of teams as well as technologies to keep our platform safe and also to protect elections. So some of the examples of what we've done over the years have been, for example, we have tripled the number of people working on safety and security. We have also made significant improvements to help reduce the misinfo on our platform. And we've also made some product changes to give people the flexibility to let us know if they want to see less political content in their news feeds. So we also provide industry-leading levels of transparency for political advertising. And that's what we're here to talk about today with the Facebook ad library. So In order to run political or electoral advertising ads in the Philippines on our platform, advertisers need to go through an authorization process, and they need to include a paid for by disclaimer on the ad. So it's really clear who is, behind these or funding these political messaging. So our advertising transparency tools are available in 196 countries. And we require authorization in 130 of those countries, 120 of those countries and territories, including the Philippines. So we really believe that transparency leads to increased accountability and responsibility over time, and not just for Facebook, but for advertisers as well. So we are breaking new ground here. This is the first time this kind of transparency is available for political advertising. So it's a work in progress, and we definitely welcome feedback from policymakers, the civil society, and anyone who has an opinion on how to make the ad library and our ad transparency tools more effective. So we really hope that the ad library will help to inform people about, political advertising, so that they're aware of, who's running these ads, and also to help hold advertisers accountable as well. So in order, this will be quick, but I do want to let everyone know the process in which an advertiser needs to go through to run political ads in the Philippines. So in order to run ads, an advertiser must get themselves verified or confirm their identity in the Philippines. So this is important to reduce foreign interference. So in order to run political ads in the Philippines, you need to be physically based in the Philippines, and you need to have a government issued identity card, such as your passport. So when you go through step 1, you're essentially uploading your passport, and we're checking to see you are who you say you are. The second step is to set up a paid for by disclaimer. So this tells people who's created and is paying for the ads. And at this step as well, you also need to link the ad account. So the ad account is where you boost or run your ads, and we're checking that the ad account is in an approved currency for the Philippines, and also that it has a local address, again, to reduce foreign interference. Step 3 is really just adding the disclaimer to your ad. So when an advertiser boosts a post, or when they set up an ad in our campaign management tool, Ads Manager, they will literally just tick a box, and that will let us know that they would like the disclaimer placed on that ad. When that happens, then the ad will, once it's live, it will go into the ad library and will appear and will remain there for 7 years. I also want to just quickly show you what a political or an electoral ad looks like on both Facebook and Instagram. So here you'll see on the left an example of a Facebook ad. It's in a newsfeed ad. We know that it's we know that it's an ad or a paid piece of content because underneath the name of the page, which is Helen Chun 2020, you'll see sponsored. So when we see sponsored on a piece of content on our platform, that that the advertiser has paid to put it there, so it's an ad. Next to that, you'll see the disclaimer, which is what I was mentioning previously, and that says paid for by, vote for Helen Chun. And on the right-hand side, you'll see an example of an Instagram an Instagram stories ad. So again, we know that it's an ad because it says sponsored, and if you look down the bottom, you'll see the disclaimer. So paid for by, vote for Elizabeth Jones. Okay, so now we can take a little bit of a look at the ad library. So the ad library, as I've mentioned before, is a searchable database of political and electoral ads on Facebook and Instagram. It's important to note here, though, that it's not only political and electoral ads that appear in the ad library. So commercial advertisers too will have their ads appear in the ad library while the campaign is live. So for example, just say Lazada and McDonald's are running ads right now in the Philippines. You'd be able to go to the ad library and do a search and find the ads that are currently live at the moment for Lazada and McDonald's. But when those ads stop running, then they will no longer be visible in the ad library. And this is the difference between political and electoral ads. So political and electoral ads will remain archived in the ad library for 7 years, even once it's stopped running on Facebook and Instagram. So this is a homepage. So if you go to facebook.com/ad library, you'll land here. The first thing you'll need to do is check the location. So it's defaulted for me to Singapore, which is where I'm based, but I've been able to change that to the Philippines. And then you've got some options. You can either search by keyword or advertiser. For example, you really might be interested in looking at the ads that a certain political figure or a political party is running or has run. So you can search by that term there. You can also search by page name or by campaign slogan or topic if relevant. You've also got the option down the bottom to view our ads library report, which will show all of the political ads for the Philippines, and then also the API. And I'm going to talk about both the ad library report and the API in the coming few slides. So this is the ad library report for the Philippines. So this will show the total number of political and electoral ads or ads with disclaimers since we introduced our transparency tools in the Philippines in August of 2020. So you can see here that there have been just under 70,000 political electoral ads that have been archived in the ad library, and the total spend, which is 126 million pesos. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see the spend per page in descending order. So you can also look at the data by top spend in the last day, the last 7 days, the last 30 days, the last 90 days, and all dates. And so I've had a look at one. Let's just go through one as an example. This is an interesting one, actually, because this is by the Department of Health in the Philippines. And actually, they're not running political ads, but they have chosen to increase the level of transparency for their ads. And they have opted in to including the disclaimer on their ads. And we see this from time to time. So I think that's important to keep in mind that not only political advertisers and electoral advertisers can use our transparency tools, any advertiser can, and the Department of Health is one that has. So this is at the page level what we're seeing in the ads library. So we're seeing some information about page transparency, such as when the page was created, as well as the location of the people managing the page. So 12 of them in the Philippines in this example. Then on the right-hand side, we're seeing the total spend by this particular page. And you can see that it's around 47,000 pesos. And that's looking back to the 4th of August 2020. And again, that's a date that we introduced the transparency tools to the Philippines. Underneath, you'll be able to get a snapshot of recent spend, so spend in the last 7 days, in this case 39,000 pesos. And again, this is publicly available information, so anyone can go and have a look at any page page or candidate or advertiser in the ad library. So it's not gated at all. Anyone has access to this ad library. Right, so if we scroll down, we will see archived all of the ads that this particular page has run in the spirit of transparency. So we're looking at 2 examples here. The first example is an active ad. Meaning that the ad is currently running, or at least it was when I took this screenshot last night. And then the one on the left-hand side is an example of an inactive ad, so not currently running, but archived here for 7 years. And if you click on the See Summary Detail, we'll get to have a look at the type of information that we show. So the summary data shows a range of the amount that has been spent for a particular ad, the number of impressions. So impressions mean the number of times an ad was shown on someone's screen. And then we also surface some demographic and geographic information. So in the middle, you'll see the split of who saw the ads, so males, females, and in which age group. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see some geographic information. So, roughly 60% of this particular ad campaign was delivered to people in Metro Manila. And we also, at the ad level, show some information about the advertiser. And this is the information that the advertiser entered when they were doing step 2 of the process that I spoke about earlier. So setting up the disclaimer. So when an advertiser sets up the disclaimer, they have a few different options. So they can either set up the disclaimer to say paid for by my actual name, or in this case, this is what they've done. So they've used their own name in the disclaimer. Another option, and one that is commonly utilized for people that don't really want to include their own name, is to include the name of your page, or they could also have had a disclaimer saying paid for by the Department of Health, as an example. So there are some different options with how they disclaim who's paying for the ads. And now moving on to the Ads Library API. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it really is a way to, do more customized searches of the ads that are stored in the ad library. So you can search data for both active and inactive ads. It does help to be familiar with programming to use the API, but anyone is welcome to request access to the API. And you can do that through the ad library homepage. And a link there will take you to the process. And the first process is to confirm your identity. And the second part of the process is to set up a Facebook developer account. And then you need to agree to the platform policies, and then create an app in order to query the database to get the information that you want. And this is I'm not going to go through these one by one, but just to give you an idea of some of the things that you can do with the Ads Library API versus just the Ad Library report that we were looking at. So, you might want some information on ads that were delivered in a certain region. So you can run a query or a request via API to get that information. Or you might want to have a look at ads that were run in English versus Tagalog. Or, importantly for the election next year, I'm sure certain groups will want to know political spend per page during the campaign dates. If you notice with the Ad Library report that we were looking at, we had preset dates of, the last day, the last 7 days, 30 days, and 90 days. But with the Ad Library API, you can actually request political spend per pages for certain dates. And I think that'll be quite handy when we think about monitoring political spend in next year. So there's lots of different options for the type of information that you can get via API. So again, just to summarize, you can either, when you're using the ad library, you can either search for a page, an advertiser, a keyword. You can look at the ad library report for the Philippines or the ad library API. So hopefully that's been helpful to give you a quite a brief overview of political advertising and the ad library on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Excellent. I've stopped sharing my screen. Thank you, Haj.
Thank you so much, Kylie. That was very informative presentation on your end. I really learned a lot as well. I was listening a while ago. It is very helpful, especially now that most of the Filipinos are online. So it's really very helpful for them. And it really promotes this transparency, especially on the campaign finance. So speaking of campaign finance, I have here my next question is, and this is for Carmela. So, Carmela, can you tell us about the PCIG's experience in covering campaign finance during the Philippine elections? And has PCIJ made use of the Facebook Ads Library in its stories?
Thank you, Haj. As we say at the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, campaign finance is an important, if not the most important, aspect of any electoral exercise. And there's always been a focus on advertising because, based on candidates' own campaign expenditure reports, advertising takes up a chunk of campaign expenses. But Haj, if you allow me, before I discuss how PCIJ covers campaign finance, let me explain why we cover campaign finance and why we focus on campaign finance. It's because we know that how candidates spend money in elections has implications beyond election day. We need to know who are funding them and how they are spending the money they were given by the donors. Just to cite an example, several of President Duterte's campaign donors were appointed to positions in government, and that includes Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez and former Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Cayetano. Even businessman Dennis Uy was a campaign donor of President Duterte. We also know, based on their reports, that many candidates spend so much of their own money to run for elections and convince people that they are worthy of the public trust. So for PCIJ, we really see the value of campaign finance beyond the context of elections. It is an anti-corruption and good governance activity more than it is an election activity. We need to see if the elected officials are going to be influenced, by the donors, and if there's going to be a quid pro quo arrangement when they enter public office. I'd also like to mention that PCIJ is part of has been part of coalition of election watchdogs, and which includes Lente, and other freedom of information advocates and media groups that have brought campaign finance on the election agenda. As far back as 2007, PCIJ formed the coalition called Perat Politica, which in English is money and politics. So what the coalition did was review how and why candidates spend huge sums of money to get elected. It followed the money trail in the succeeding elections, the 2010 presidential elections. This was a decade ago. And also held public events to highlight the huge advertising money spent by the candidates. So, okay, to answer your question, how did PCIJ cover campaign finance? Because it has changed in the past decade, right? A decade ago, during the 2010 elections, Facebook was still relatively new in the Philippines. Campaign finance reporting was really straightforward. PCIJ monitored how candidates spent advertising on mainstream media mostly, and data can be accessed through monitors. We can see, based on reports, who spent most on TV, radio, and print. And TV, being the main source of voter information, was always bombarded with ads. In fact, we know that towards election day, ad spots would become more expensive. So these were the things we were monitoring before. And then after the elections, PCIJ would also look into the expenditure reports that candidates file. They're required to file under the law. So that's been what PCIJ had been doing until it became so complex because of the rise of social media platforms. And if I may add, before you watch TV and radio stations and newspapers and read newspapers and tabloids, you see how candidates were advertising themselves. Now it's with social media, it's impossible to see all of these ads on various social media platforms, not only because of the sheer number of ads, but because of technological advancements. Kylie explained this, that allow targeting, or in other cases, micro-targeting, right? For example, meaning some ads can only be seen by targeted social media users. So that makes it a big challenge for monitors. I don't know, I might be getting ahead of the conversation, but I'd like to go back to this later. Our conversation tonight is really very important. So I hope that the viewers and listeners will have a better appreciation of why we really need to pay attention to campaign spending.
Thank you, Carmela. I would just like to highlight the words of Carmela, no, that campaign finance reporting is more than just the elections. It promotes anti-corruption and good governance. So thank you for that. We'll now proceed with the next question. The next question is addressed to all of our representatives right now, from Meta and of course Carmela. How do you think can COMELEC journalists, PR and advertising firms, and election monitoring organizations maximize the Facebook ads library in relation to the upcoming 2022 national and local elections? Maybe we can start with Roy from Meta.
Yeah, thanks. And I think Camilla kind of mentioned it earlier as well, right? We've had more than 200 elections across the globe, and we have had election regulators using our ads library across all these elections, and this is since 2017. And so, I think we have seen a lot of election regulators, civil society, journalists, news and press, all using the ads library really to ensure that they're looking, they're analyzing the insights to hold advertisers, right, your campaign finances and advertisers accountable. We have seen it in, I think in recent elections like Australia, Singapore, and even in Philippines, where news and press have actually called out, different campaigns on the kind of amounts they're spending, and really, asking and diving deeper into all these facts and figures. And I think the great thing about it, to what Kylie mentioned earlier, is that there are many different kind of entry points for users to kind of search, right? So whether or not it's getting to the ads library website itself and searching the database, or trying to tap into our APIs, and that helps with civil society or researchers to have a more robust understanding and robust search of the ads library. So I think it's a real comprehensive tool. We've seen all these different researchers, election regulators, journalists, all using it in various forms. And it has kind of helped people accountable throughout the elections.
Thank you, Roy. Carmela, could you answer the question, please? Also,
The Facebook ads library has been useful to us. We started using it in May because we wanted to mark 1 year before the elections in 2022, and we also interviewed again Lente Executive Director Rona Carritos for the story. Consistent with our advocacy to monitor campaign finance, when we learned that it has been rolled out in the Philippines, we immediately checked it out. So this was in May this year. At the time, it was Senator Sherwin Gatchalian and former Senator Trillanes, both of whom are running for senator, who were the top spenders on Facebook. What it showed us then, because it was still a year before the election, was how much money candidates were willing to spend on social media, and Facebook in particular, because it's really very popular among Filipino users, right? If you look, Kylie showed it earlier, if you look at the FB ad library now, and I check all the dates, the top spender is still Senator Gatchalian, followed by Senator Ping Lacson and his political party, Partido Reforma. And then you have Senator Lauren Legarda, and then Vice President Lenny Robredo. So it's really important to be able to see this information, because transparency in candidates' campaign spending is key. It's the only way we know they're following the country's election laws, right? So in this sense, the Facebook ad library had been very helpful, especially because COMELEC struggled really to monitor social media. And now it's not just COMELEC who will have access to this information, but the general public. Having said that, though, I know we're focused on Facebook, but that's just one platform, right? We still have other platforms in the Philippines we need to monitor, and that's going to be a challenge. When we released our report on the Facebook ads, for example, we received information from our readers that they're also seeing ads in various social media platforms. And then that's just also advertising, right? When we talk about online, it's not just advertising. As we know, there's a lot of concerns about influencers too, but I hope there's an opportunity to discuss this also, because I think it's also important to understand in the context of the Philippines that advertising is not the problem. Advertising per se is not the problem. We monitor advertising because we don't want overspending, because we want to level the playing field. But there are other problems such as disinformation, fake accounts, and hate speech, for example. So when we talk about elections, I think these are also topics that we should discuss. Thank you, Haj.
Thank you, Carmela. Thank you, Roy, for those answers. We'll now proceed with the next question. To what extent do you think is the Facebook Ads Library effective in enabling transparency and, of course, preventing election interference with the upcoming 2022 elections? Let's start from the representative from Meta. Roy, would you like to answer
Yeah,
that
thank
question?
you. So I think when it comes to transparency, we kind of touched on it earlier. Ad spend is really transparent, and the targeting options as well, and even the regional areas of where they target, it's really transparent in the ad library. I think one additional things that come with the ad library is also our page transparency tools, right? So as part of, if you're looking at each individual page and you're looking at the spend, you can also see the page transparency, and it gives you an idea of when it was created, and where the admins are from, right? So this is really important. So for example, if there's a newsy page who's pushing out news on Philippines election, and you look at the page transparency and you see it's been recently created, the admins are maybe from Macedonia, then that it's a bit suspicious, right? Why are the admins so far away posting news about Philippines? And so this gives people an added insight into the administrators and the people behind the page. So I think that's one thing that can really prevent a lot of interference. Another thing about the ad library is that we have a lot greater authenticity requirements. So what it means is that in order to place ads about political and electoral ads, we require authorizations, right? So the person that wants to place ads in the Philippines or such ads in the Philippines needs to be based in the Philippines. And so we do checks. We require some form of ID and some checks on the background to ensure that they are based in the Philippines. And then after, they need to be transparent about how to contact them, right? So if you need, disclaimer, who's paying for the ads, how to contact these people, it needs to be very transparent. This helps to ensure that, whoever is placing these ads about politics and elections are based in the Philippines. They have some stake in it, and ensuring that people from overseas, foreign interference, they can't interfere with the elections from a foreign country. So I think the tools, it's really breaking new ground, and hopefully it's industry leading, and that's what we hope everyone follows suit.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy. We were hoping also. Carmela, do you have any response to that question?
No, I think I talked about targeting earlier, and that I think that's what makes Facebook Ads Library also very valuable, because it makes targeting attempts on Facebook transparent. We're able to see if they're targeting a particular region, if they're targeting particular demographics. Targeting obviously is normal in all advertising, right? Candidates will have different messages for different demographics, because obviously they will have different programs for women, for the elderly, and for the youth. What actually, this is also my question for Meta, for Facebook, is micro targeting only because the Commission on Elections issued a resolution that bans micro targeting, and I'd like to know how this is implementable. So, and because the definition of COMELEC for micro-targeting is the use of recent technological advancements to analyze a person's online usage. I'm sure you've seen that resolution as well. So that it will be interesting if that will be how that will be implemented.
Yep. Thank you, Carmela. Maybe someone from Meta can answer. Kylie?
Sure, I can jump in here. So, I mean, thank you for that information, and we can definitely work with our specialists to see what the guidance is from COMELEC, and we do take on a lot of feedback from policymakers and all of our partners. We're very, very open to that, and so we are making some changes to targeting. They're not happening at the moment. We've announced them recently, only really recently, I think sometime earlier this week, we made the announcement, and the changes will start in January, so the 19th of January next year. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove some of the more detailed, granular targeting that relate to topics that people may perceive as sensitive. So they're things like race and ethnicity, political affiliation, and so forth. So we're happy to share more of that information with you, and we can have a discussion around that. But yeah, thank you very much for the feedback.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Kylie, for answering that question from Kerala. We'll now proceed with our last question because I believe you are time constrained. So, last question. This is addressed to all our guests right now. What has been the impact of the ads library to the public, to the PR firms, and the advertisers, and to the political aspirants or the certificate of candidacy filers? So, let's start maybe from Kylie.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks again, Haj. So I think we've talked about it already, but I really think the impact is just greater transparency and accountability. For example, reporters, researchers, academic partners have used this to monitor political spend, and so they can study the impact of Facebook's products on elections. In fact, recently we announced a partnership with academics on more long-term research collaborations about topics where the public is most concerned about Facebook's impact. So today we're focused on elections and democracy, but we look to add more research areas in times to come. So I think the impact is ongoing. And we're really looking forward to the developments on the ad library and all of our transparency solutions as we look forward to next year and beyond. Thanks.
Thank you, Kylie. Same question, Carmela. Can you answer the question?
I think PCIJ will definitely continue to use the ad library because we do have monitors for the traditional media, and it's good, especially as the role of social media continues to grow in the Philippines. And we will expect that it will be very influential in the coming elections. So this is one way to be able to monitor the spending of candidates.
Thank you so much to our guests. We believe that the um, the Facebook Ads Library really promotes transparency. There are some maybe subject for, since it is new, still subject for further improvement, but still based on the discussion that we have right now, it really promotes greater transparency, especially in the 2022 elections. So before you leave our conversation right now, we will just entertain one question from our audience. Thank you so much for your time, for the knowledge, for your sharing. Let's entertain one question from our Facebook page. Can we show it right now? Oh, so the question is, how will Facebook or Meta work with Comelec? Maybe Roy can answer this question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, we're doing quite a lot of different things with Comelec, and I think it's a holistic approach to our election work in the Philippines. I think first of all, I think in August, September this year, we conducted a lot of walkthroughs with Comelec on the political ads tool. Exactly what we went through today. We are also partnering with them for them to lead the trainings with political parties and candidates, because we want to ensure that there is a non-partisan and wide approach to engage candidates, and we want to teach them about the tool as well, right, and how to use our platform and ensure that they know our community standards and keep themselves safe on our platform. Comelec also has regular escalations channels to us, so they can directly report violating content, especially when you think about different periods of the elections where they may need to do that. And we continue to work with them on things like civic education campaigns. We are working with them on potentially like a digital literacy and civic engagement kind of campaign that's coming up. I can't say too much, but it's coming out soon. And so it's a real holistic approach. It's not just one thing, and I think hopefully together with Comelec and partners as well in this call, that we can actually extend our reach to educate Filipinos on how to use our platforms in a very positive way.
Thank you so much, Roy. As much as we want to extend our conversation, we really have a limited time. So again, I would like to thank Carmela, Kylie, and Roy for gracing our show tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Before we leave, you leave our show, any last messages for our viewers or our listeners right now? Let's start with Kylie, maybe.
Thank you, Harsh. So thanks again for having us. Sorry we can't stay longer. My last message will be, have a play with the ad library. It's very user friendly. So definitely encourage all of our viewers to go to the ad library and have a look at the sort of information that you can find in there. But thanks again. Lovely to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. Roy?
Yeah, I think just want to encourage everyone to continue to promote, a good and positive use of our platform, especially during this election campaign periods. Just remember, if there are things that you don't like to see, report them. We do review every single report, and we just want to make sure that everyone is able to use our platforms in a positive way. So thank you very much for this opportunity today.
Thank you so much, Roy. Carmela?
Thank you, Haj. I just want to repeat that we have to understand. I hope we all understand that how campaign finance, is a very important aspect of electoral exercise, because it can affect governance after the elections. We need to know how candidates spend the money during the elections, and let's make sure that it will not influence their future decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our guest tonight. Ayan, napakaganda po ng mga usapan natin. Thank you, Carmela. Thank you, Kylie. And thank you, Roy, again for gracing our show. Ang show na walang title pero hashtag sa atin pa rin ang eleksyon. Ayan, before po tayo magtapos sa ating pong programa tonight, pwede na po ako mag-Filipino at mag-Tagalog. Na-pressure po ako kanina. Ayan, shoutout po muna tayo sa ating pong mga nakikinig. Ayan, mga listeners po natin. Saan po yung mga pa-shoutouts po natin dyan? Shoutout nga po pala sa lahat ng mga nakikinig. I have my friends with me who are listening right now and watching us right now. Good evening to all our viewers from Lente Philippines. Thank you so much. Again, please follow our Facebook page, our Twitter and Instagram page. Ayan, maraming salamat po. Shoutout po. Lodi Attorney, ayan. Attorney Dredd from Francis Santos. Thank you so much. Ayan, from Claire Amador on Facebook. Maraming salamat sa show na to. Lente, napaka-informative. Maraming salamat po. Thank you rin so much for tuning in to our episode, our first episode for ang show na walang title. Our 19th episode na po ng ating show. Ayan. Meron pa ba dyan? Good job, Haj. Thank you so much po. Yay! Thank you to our terps. Ano ba yung terps? Ember and Joy. Ayan, interpreters. Ayan po, interpreters. Medyo nawala po ako dan. Maraming salamat po. Shoutout po sa aking mga kaibigan na nanonood right now. We are again live on ABS-CBN News din po. So, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Ayan. So, mukhang wala na tayong mga pa-shoutout dyan. Thank you so much for tuning in. Maraming salamat. Bago tayo magtapos, ipopromote ko lang po yung mga activities po natin sa Lente. Unang-una po dyan, we want to promote yung Activate trainings po natin in Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Lanao del Sur. Meron po tayong Activate Bangsamoro in Basilan, Sulu, Lanao del Sur, and Tawi-Tawi. Of course, we also have this internship program of the Tayo Na Collaboratory. You can sign up until bukas po yan sa November 20. So please sign up po tayo. Check niyo po yung mga pages po natin. And we also have upcoming shows featuring the law students from Ateneo Law School and other voter education activities. So abang-abang po tayo sa ganyang klase mga programa, aktibidades mula po sa Lente. Of course, do not forget everyone to please like our Facebook page. That is Lente Philippines. And also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Lente_PH. Follow niyo rin po kami sa YouTube, Lente PH. And of course, you can also check our website. That's lente.org.ph. Ayan. Maraming salamat po sa pagsali sa amin. Pagsali. Nawala tuloy ako. Meron po tayo poll video. Ayan, sige. Ipi-play po natin kung ano po ba yung magiging episodes po natin for the succeeding weeks po natin sa ating pong show. Let's watch this. maraming salamat po sa lahat. Muli, ako nga po pala ang inyong host for tonight sa show po natin na walang title pero hashtag atin ang eleksyon, sa atin ang eleksyon. I am your host, Haj Kabalu. Nag-iwan sa inyo ng isang magandang gabi. Alam po.